going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. This week I want to share with you the benefits of going to a tiny house festival before you go tiny. Even after you go tiny, there are benefits for tiny house festivals. I have been living tiny for almost 3 years, and before I went tiny, I went to 2 tiny house festivals, and while living tiny, I've been to 1 tiny house festival. And I feel that both are beneficial in 2 different ways, so I'm going to share those ways with you today. So let's get started. We are going to start with before I went tiny. I went to 2 tiny house festivals, and they were the Incredible Tiny Homes Jamborees. One was before I decided on the house, and then one was when I had my house. So let's start with the one before I got my house. I was able to go to that tiny house festival in order to look at around 30 different tiny houses in order for me to see if I could live this lifestyle. They had multiple different kinds of houses with people living in them already, ones being built for other people, a couple show ones, and there was one for a giveaway. So when I was able to tour these people's houses, I was able to put my stuff in places. I was able to form a design, and even though I already had my design figured out in my head, I was able to put myself in a tiny house before I went tiny. I was not able to experience, say, an Airbnb and staying in a tiny house, but being able to walk through the houses, see the designs, helped me make the decision to go tiny. Now, the second time I went to a tiny house festival, it was after my house was built and it was just being finished and it was still at their facility. So I went to a second Incredible Tiny Homes Jamboree and was able to show my finished house. I also have a business called Goddess of Herbs. You guys can check out that link right here, and I'll put it in the description below, where I make and sell herbal remedies and natural products. I was also able to vendor my business stuff out of my house. So while people were coming in and out of my house, touring my house, I was also selling the stuff that I had always intended on selling out of my house. Even though I do have a website online and I also sell on Etsy and Instagram and Facebook, I wanted to be able to sell out of my house as well, and it kind of worked best for me that way. The third festival I went to was the Georgia Tiny House Festival, and I have already been living tiny for almost 3 years, so those have its benefits too. So now let's get into the benefits. Let's start with number 1. Depending on what tiny house festival, jamboree, or show or event that you're going to, you are going to be able to experience going into multiple different tiny structures. The Incredible Tiny Homes Jamboree only had tiny houses, I believe. They had about 30 of them, but the Georgia Tiny House Festival had vans, schoolies, conversions. There were like Jeeps there. There was like all kinds of tiny structures. Tiny living isn't only in tiny houses, so I'm kind of glad that those things were included because there are a lot of benefits to knowing about those as well. Number 2, since these people have vans, schoolies, a lot of them travel during their living and their livelihood of tiny houses. They don't just park their bus somewhere, or they don't just park their van somewhere. These people are actually traveling. So if that is part of your tiny house plan, you can talk to these people while they're letting you tour their house about how they travel, what they do. Take in some notes and, ask questions about what you need to know about your tiny house traveling. I live in a tiny house, but me personally, when I get my land, I'm going to be parking the tiny house on the land and not moving it again. And I will be getting either a van conversion, a small schoolie conversion, or an RV. And I know RVs really aren't at tiny house festivals, but it is a form of tiny living. So it's good to know and go to these festivals and learn about how you're going to travel if that's part of your plan. Number 3 is design ideas. So if you are looking for design ideas for your tiny house, your van, your schoolie, go to one of these festivals and tour these tiny structures in order to find some design ideas. These people are already living tiny, so you can get ideas from them where they put their storage, where they put cooking stuff, where they put their beds, how they have their beds configured. So like when I was showing my house at the second tiny house festival, I was able to show people all of my storage, how I designed my whole litter box area. Lots of people are taking pictures of your house while they're touring your house, so if they don't have a notebook to write down those ideas, they can always take pictures of them and apply them to their tiny houses. Number 4, you get to see people in the tiny house community that you have been talking to online for years that you haven't even met. People travel all over to go to different tiny house festivals. These folks are really great. I met a lot of people at a couple of the tiny house festivals that I went to that I really wanted to meet, and now living tiny, I still get to meet them because I still keep going to festivals. Number 5, not only do you get to see people that you've been wanting to meet, you get to meet new tiny house people and form friendships with them. This is a like-minded community, so the niche is kind of all in together. So you've got your tiny house people, your van people, your schoolie people, and we're all in the same community, yet each of those groups of people can help each other with their own forms of tiny living. Number 6, usually at every single tiny house event, there is a certification company there. At the Incredible Tiny Homes one, I believe they had their own certification, and RVIA might have been there, but I don't recall. But at the Georgia Tiny House Festival, NOAA was there. Me personally, I don't have any certification on my tiny house, but if I were to get certification, I would definitely go with NOAA. And the reason I would go with NOAA is because it stands for National Organization of Alternative Housing. NOAA even has option where you can get your house certified after the fact. It's not as thorough, but you need pictures, you need video to show when it was being built. So they need to see inside the walls and things like that in order to correctly assess your house to make sure it is certified. Although some companies, especially tiny house companies, may certify their houses with RVIA, I'm just not partial to that, just because I have been told that recreational vehicles aren't to be lived in full time, and my thing is I want to live in my house full time. So if I did choose to get certification, I would definitely go with NOAA. So check them out. Number 7 would be you get to listen to the speakers. There are usually a handful or 2 of speakers that go to tiny house festivals in order to give their knowledge to the people who go there. This could include single moms on the road, how to run a business in a tiny house, passive income, stuff about certification. There's even a homeowners panel of questions and answers that people can ask other people living tiny in order to find out information they need to make their tiny house journey better. And there are also all kinds of speakers that talk about zoning, living with disabilities in a tiny house, living with animals in a tiny house, as well as buying versus building. So there are a lot of benefits to listening to the speakers at a tiny house festival. On the other side of listening to the speakers, you have the speakers in general. So if you are already living tiny, you can be asked to be a speaker on a specific topic and be able to share your knowledge and educate other people on how to do that specific thing. So not only are there people going to tiny house festivals listening to them, there are also people going there to speak to educate others. Number 8, you can apply to go to a tiny house festival with your craft vending stuff. So if you sell something, say out of your tiny house, or has something to do with tiny houses, or you have a craft in general and don't live in a tiny house, there are people walking around all day looking at your products, and this is a great way to get your product out there, especially if you do work out of a tiny house. Then you're actually also teaching people how to do that as well. With thousands and thousands of people coming in and out of there with the 2-day festivals that usually take place, there are a lot of new customers that you can acquire and a lot of new things that you can learn and teach others through your business. Number 9 would be networking. So while you are at these tiny house festivals, you can share your ideas, share your information, educate others. They're gathering ideas from other people, meeting new people. Through interacting with others and exchanging that information, you form professional relationships with these people as well as social contacts, and are able to move forward with your business or your journey, knowing more information and able to share more information after networking. And last but not least, one of the benefits of going to a tiny house festival would be workshops. I personally didn't go to any of the workshops at either of the festivals that I went to, but there were workshops that showed how water systems worked, how solar systems worked, and it gave the people who came more knowledge on those systems in general. When I was doing my research, I wrote down all the solar stuff, but it would have been beneficial for me to actually see a setup in action, to write down notes on how to set it up. So tiny house festivals do provide these workshops, and maybe even if you have something that you can teach others, you can ask to be a workshop. I don't know if they charge for them, but I think they're beneficial for tiny house festivals. So in conclusion, I believe that tiny house festivals are super beneficial in either if you're before going tiny or after going tiny. Like I said, I've been living tiny for 3 years and I plan to keep going to festivals. My beast of a house, which is 28 feet by 8 feet, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to bring her to a festival, but I can at least provide my knowledge by being a speaker, or I can network with others, meet people that I've wanted to meet, and look at other tiny house designs and stuff for, say, maybe my future. I'm looking to add more tiny houses to my land once I get it. So again, design ideas, all of this stuff is beneficial for me and you. So if you guys like this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button below and click the notifications bell so you can receive a notification when I post my new videos, which is every Sunday. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. We are going to start with, when you are walking through these tiny structures, bring your, I don't know what it's called, where I put cat stuff, like Recreational Vehicle Industry Association, I think. Don't put any of this.